excited to be here today. I want to talk, like everyone this month is going to, about your health and wellness routine. But I think we got to start at a place that is maybe the most important. That is, we are going to have conversations about building routines or thinking about health as it works best for you, right? As it works best for you. I think it's super important for all of us and every single class that you end up stepping into this month to appreciate that the journey that you're going to take for your health, all the routines that you might develop, they are wholly and totally unique to you. I have myself made mistakes in trying to lean into and take someone else's routine or listen to someone else's advice and apply it in my life, only to find that their routine, their plan, their diet, their mindset, their work on their health was appropriate for them, but not for me. And so sometimes when we start talking about health or have a conversation about wellness, there's this hope that there's a silver bullet, that there's this single thing that you're just going to be able to do. It's going to immediately jump you into how you'd hope to feel. And the reality, it's just not quick work. Transformation, building habits, having a routine that works for you or accommodates your lifestyle doesn't happen in a short window of time. It certainly hasn't for me. It's taken me years to morph and adjust my life, my body, my mind over time, and it's going to be the same for you. And I think it's important to just kind of set that frame up front so that you don't get too hard on yourself, so that you give yourself the kind of grace that you're going to need when you start trying some new things to tailor your health needs, your wellness journey to the things that you need. I have, in the last decade of my life, been what the medical community would define as obese, right? This tall frame, I'm 6'4", I've held 40 more pounds than I carry today. I carried it for years and years in a way that compromised my energy, affected my sex life, affected my confidence, compromised my mindset, made my blood pressure higher, and so many more things. And I'm 46 years old now. But when I was 30, 15 years ago, entering my 30s, I was not this lean, mean fight machine that you see in front of you today. I was the opposite. I had the hubris of a kid who never, ever contemplated the implication of not tending to my health and wellness. I thought I'd live forever. I didn't give that much a thought of how foods affected my body. I didn't see the benefits necessarily of moving it every single day or drinking enough water. I certainly leaned on too many coping mechanisms, drinking too much alcohol, doing things like eating my feelings in a way that was inconsistent with who I'd hoped to be. And now I want to shake that kid by the lapels, right? Every day when I wake up, I want to try and see how I can make up for that lost time. Yeah, what could I have done with that metabolism of a 30-year-old? What could I have done with these years that I didn't apply some of the discipline that I apply now? But what's interesting is I've also come to appreciate that bemoaning why I hadn't started earlier, having guilt or shame for wasting time or not focusing on the things that I'm focused on now, doesn't serve me at all, right? There's something in the same way that we approach mindset, in the same way we approach almost everything you're going to talk about with all of our teachers, not just this month, but every month, around programming, around limiting beliefs, that in some way inform how we've approached health and wellness historically. In a simple example, I've talked about how I've become a runner. I'm 46, I run a ton. Running has become this beautiful combination of church and therapy, but I only started running 10 years ago, didn't run a single mile outdoors until I was 36. And in part, it was because I believed a story that was told to me, God bless it, by my mother, who was concerned about how tall people's hips, back, knees were affected by running. And I took her truth and I accepted it as my own without testing the hypothesis of what was possible inside of my own health. And then one day I ran and I didn't have the things that she was afraid of. And I became a runner for challenging this story that was handed to me as love, that was truly a reflection more of her fear. And as I unpacked that limiting belief, my mom is neither tall, she's not a runner, so she didn't actually have credibility on this component of my personal health journey. And so making that limiting belief for me untrue was something that unlocked an outlet for me that's become this amazing source of strength. And I don't know what your storytellers have told you in how you've approached health over the years. But one of the things that you'll inevitably have to do in this, your personal health journey, is understand why you haven't given as much weight to your mental health as you do physical. Not as much time to understanding your emotions and your emotional health journey as you might your relational health. Because there's something in storytelling that's kept you from indulging in and making equally important each of the big 5 components of health: your emotional, mental, relational, spiritual, and physical components of health, right? When I think about the idea of holistic health, the way I want to try and explain it to you is just like the idea of a wheel, the idea of a stool, right? If you think about those 5 components of health and are only really leaning into and catering to 3 of the 5, that bike don't ride. That stool don't support your weight. You have to find a way to consider the equal distribution of your attention and your intention so that you can create a holistic plan that actually serves you and the person you hope to become, the way you'd hope to feel about yourself when you're by yourself. Okay, so as we jump in here, I'm going to ask you to, on your piece of paper, write down a little bit of homework. Okay, in the work, I want you to be vulnerable, be honest. I want you to answer this question: how do you feel about yourself when you're by yourself as you think about your health and wellness journey? Right? When I've confronted these things that I don't like, where I've been honest about where I have room to grow, that's how I've developed my habits. That's how I've created my morning routine. In part, my hope is that if you can connect to that question, we're going to go into this full month of teachers that are likely to bring up things that for some of us is going to be just a little bit hard. It may even be somewhat triggering. Some of you are maybe more evolved in your health journey. Maybe there'll be nothing triggering. This is just going to be fantastic, celebrating good times. Come on. But there could be, for some of you, a stigma around mental health. There may be challenges for some of you in confronting some of the emotions that you feel that are connected to some of the experiences of your past. There may be some of you that don't like the way that body image or weight creates something of a trigger for you. Okay. If you can first start with understanding where those triggers exist, that's the first step. But I also, since this is the first of the conversations for an entire month on health and wellness, I want to start by honoring the fact that you are freaking here. You are here. You are here, and your decision to be here is already putting you on the path to developing something around health and wellness that is going to get you a step closer to whole. You're here, and in being here, it also starts with acknowledging that as much as you do want to identify where you have room to grow, that you are on day one, as you start the rest of the life's journey that sits in front of you, already good and worthy and enough as you are. Because if you start in a place of deficit, if you start in a place of shame, if you start in a place of inadequacy or scarcity, you will not be able to stick to anything that we talk about in this course or any of the courses for the rest of the month. You have to start by believing that you are amazing and awesome and glorious as you are, but also that you're allowed to want to start pulling on these threads to understand where you can take a step forward in your health journey in a way that shame is not invited, doesn't serve us, it doesn't serve you, it's not going to be an important part of how you actually make the progress that you want going forward. You have to choose, like I said up front, to develop something that is uniquely, specifically catered to you, which means that comparison does not have a part of this story. You're on your own journey. It's a journey that starts by honoring that you are amazing and here and willing to take a step forward. Creating a persona for your aspirational mindset. Okay? The question here is, who do you need to become to embody a mindset of confidence, of strength, of optimism, growth, tenacity, the kind of person who makes lemons into lemonade, right? For me, my single word is captain. Like, I'm the captain now. Like the guy boarding Tom Hanks' boat and Captain Phillips, look at me, I'm the captain now. And when I conjure the vision of what it means to be the captain of my ship, I embody a mindset that says, irrespective of the size of the swells, irrespective of the winds that blows or don't, I am the captain of this ship. And guess what? I've just come through a season of feeling overwhelmingly unmoored, right? I was pushed off to sea. And when I think about the person that I have to become to embody the mindset I need to handle the swells that are coming my way, it's captain. I mentioned this in February's course. I like to show off my tattoo, but a ship in harbor is safe, but that's not what ships are built for. That is a John Shedd quote. I got this tattooed on my forearm as a mantra. This is my advanced mindset, right? This is my mandate to embrace the chop, to believe that I was built for the choppy waters, that I, as a boat, was not meant to stay inside of a harbor of my safe, my security, my familiar, but that I was in fact built for the waves that exist beyond the jetty. It's this constant reminder that the life that I want exists outside my comfort zone, and that the only way that I can evolve into the person I want to be, right? For myself, for my family, for someone who's proud of himself when he's by himself, is by pushing myself beyond what's easy and familiar. Or when unfamiliar chooses me, it's seeing that choice beyond my control as something that has a means to a greater end, a greater me, a stronger me, right? On the other side of whatever challenging conditions end up being thrown my way, those conditions are who I'm becoming. Good or bad, come at me, bro. I'm the captain. I am the captain. Come at me, bro. Right? When I have that captain persona on, I am okay with the swell. I'm okay with the wind. And the thing is, and it's hard because nobody wants to invite challenging conditions, but it requires that I test myself every day to embrace the journey into the unknown, even when I get scared, even when it's disappointing, even when it doesn't go my way or on my timeline. It just demands that I am willing to stand back up and do it afraid and learn from my mistakes and inevitably keep getting up. Because that's what happens when you push into new spaces. That's what happens when you grow. It's not if I'm gonna get knocked down again, it's when. It's not if you're gonna get knocked down again, it's when. And when you do, who do you have to be to handle that with grace, with tenacity, with grit, in a way that helps you learn, grow, and become because of getting back up? The funny thing is, I am not good on boats, which is strange because I got a tattoo about boats on my arm. I'm not a lover of open water, and yet most of my coaching, a lot of what I write about tends to be about these analogies of being at sea, because guess what? That's how I can connect best with this persona that I have to embody to engineer the mindset and stand in a posture of resilience that sets me up to handle whatever life is dealing me next. By nature, I actually end up feeling a little bit more comfortable when I am anchored and close to shore. I have lived most of my life as someone who prioritized certainty, liked the idea of predictability. And in that, I've opted for it even at the expense of becoming, right? I've chosen it even though it ended me in a place of being stuck. I've rationalized, like I'm sure plenty of you have at some point in your life, that I was okay just being okay, or that it was safer to stay in something I knew, even if it was suffering that I knew, than put myself out there and challenging myself, challenging the status quo. And what's interesting with mindset is I think that we all fall victim sometimes to a harbor that we are anchored to, right? I think that there are things, be they the stories that we've been told, the societal constructs that we live inside of, the people we surround ourselves with, the fear that governs our willingness to cling to that suffering that we know. All of those things, they either exist as one of two things. Either they're an accelerant that's going to push you to grow, get back up faster and become, or they're an anchor that constrains how we become and how we inevitably stay stuck. And so my hope in part in this conversation today is to challenge your historic relationship with the allure of the dock, right? The historic appeal of the anchor, right? Whatever yours may be, because I believe that we all have them. I certainly have them, right? I've got the stories. I've lived inside the structures. I've given way to the fears and been in the wrong kind of community that affected my mindset and impacted the way that I could be resilient and get back up when the heat showed up, when things got hard, right? My tattoo, it's that argument that we're all designed as a ship for higher seas. And so I want to encourage you to believe that in the persona that you decide to put on, so that you don't find yourself, like I have in times when I am not proud of, made trade-offs that staying in the harbor, that avoiding the choppy waters reduced the possibility for growth and ultimately left me unfulfilled, right? You can't give in to fear. You can't disregard your instincts. You can't fall into traps where you don't believe in yourself. It requires assuming this persona. So rather than convincing ourselves to settle for good, you got to believe that you deserve great. What is the persona that you have to put on to unlock, to make available to you that kind of greatness? I believe with 100% certainty that every single one of us was created with immaculate, deliberate, intentional design, given unique talents. You and only you, you are one of one out of billions of people on the planet now and the billions that lived here before. Only you have had the experiences that you've had. Only you have the gifts that you have. And you now, because of those things that are uniquely instilled inside of you, have proof of the qualification that you can handle whatever comes next, if you choose to see it as such, right? I have had plenty of times where I found myself in seasons of stuck, and it was in those seasons where I couldn't connect to this persona of captain. I couldn't conjure the imagination for believing enough in myself to push toward my fear. Like boats built to weather the storm, I'm going to argue right now that you, like me, have every single thing that we need inside of us to handle the discomfort that comes from living into our calling, right? That intentional design, that deliberate set of pieces that live inside of you. They were placed there as a part of something that was a mandate to live out that purpose. When I get asked the question, a simple question, right? How do you, Dave, define success? My answer is simply this: success is doing every single thing I can every day to honor the intention of my creator, right? I was created with purpose in mind, with intention. So were you. So the way I can embody a persona that might unlock the honoring of that intention is how I describe success. So our first piece of homework is this: what persona do you need to embody to honor the deliberate design of your creator? What character do you need to step into so that your mindset and your intention are aligned? Right? Name your character if it helps, right? Beyonce's got Sasha Fierce. I mentioned it. Bowie had Ziggy Stardust, right? I'm the captain. Who are you? What does that version of you do in the face of adversity? How do you react to disappointment? What do you do when something doesn't go your way? Can you see it as happening for you instead of to you? My challenge for you in homework in this first section is to create a personnel file for your persona, a dossier, and get as detailed as you possibly can with who you're going to step into every single day to honor the intention, the deliberate design of your creator. Today, I'm going to talk about something that I am describing in my next book. It is this idea of a linear journey of becoming. It is this idea of this progression that's going to move us from the safe harbor of comfort and familiarity that we find ourselves anchored to, through a ravine of fear, into a world of learning that ultimately affords us growth. So we're going to start with this idea of your safe harbor or your comfort zone. So as we jump into the conversation today, I want to start with agreeing up front, if you will indulge me, that growth is a requirement to being fulfilled. as in, I do not believe that you can be fulfilled if you are not growing. And I will also posit that I believe that each of us, every single one of you that is listening, is either growing or dying, right? You cannot be in the middle. You are either growing or dying. And that if you want to be fulfilled, you have to be growing, because you cannot be fulfilled in a dying state. All right, stay with me for a second. But in order to grow, it is something that exclusively comes at the expense of comfort, right? Comfort is a casualty of growth. Comfort is a casualty of growth, which is a long way of saying that if you want to feel something deeper, if you are here today wondering, how might I feel more fulfilled? Well, then you're going to have to start by challenging your relationship with comfort, right? Like I said, the decision to leave your safe harbor for a lighthouse that might sit on the opposite shore, it is something that in many ways is linear. It requires that you move through these distinct environments in sequential order. I'm going to hold up a piece of paper. I don't know if you can see this forwards or backwards, so I printed it both ways. There is a lighthouse, and under the lighthouse, it says the word safe harbor. But I'm going to describe this progression of going through your safe harbor, through a pool of fear, into a sea of learning, to ultimately reach an ocean of growth. Okay? It is a linear thing, and the broader framework of this entire conversation is built with this eye to this reality that we have to think about our relationship to each of these things if we're going to effectively navigate from safe harbor to growth, right? Why do so many of us find ourselves living with things we are familiar with? Why is comfort so attractive, right? That's a place we have to start. Clinging to comfort is a byproduct, I will argue, of fear. Fear of the unknown, a disbelief that we might have in our ability to acquire new skills, the way that we've framed the risks associated with failure, the illusion that we may hold to us having some kind of control, the way that we think playing it safe will likely have certain things turn out. But as you've already heard from so many GrowthDay teachers, there are dangers in comfort. Right? There are trade-offs that come in choosing to stay inside of the suffering that you may already know and be familiar with. And so often we choose, and I'm one of these people, I chose to stay in suffering that I knew because it was more predictable than the fear of having to try and do something new. But now that I'm doing something new, even though it's scary, I can tell you there is riches in having pushed myself into that fear. I love John Maxwell. I don't know if you guys know John Maxwell, but he said the distance between where you stand now and where you want to be is measured by the changes that you're willing to make in your life. Okay? The distance between where you are and where you want to be is measured by the changes that you're willing to make. Change comes at the expense of comfort, right? And so more than anything, as we have this conversation today, my hope in any of this is to equip you with the courage to make change, to challenge these relationships so that you might become open to the possibility of the good that can come, the growth that can come in redefining some of those relationships. I want you to connect to the courage and confidence that already lives inside of you to take one step and then another away from this place that you've known for all the opportunity to unleash the purpose and meaning that you deserve in this life. All right. One of the reasons I will argue also that we tend to cling to comfort and the relationship is so crazy, it's because of something of a belief that we have that the things that have existed or that currently exist will exist in perpetuity. Right? I think that's one of the biggest dangers of the safe harbor, right? Thinking that the things that we've come to know can be counted on. The pieces of identity or status, security, familiarity, more that live inside of like employment status or a relationship or a certain state of health you might be in or a state of life that you're experiencing that are all there, right? They're all there until What? Until a pandemic comes along, until downsizing happens, until you get a phone call from a doctor with a diagnosis, until divorce, until kids head off to college and it changes who you are to them and who you are on this planet, right? So it might sound a little bit scary, but we end up actually being in much better shape to meet the challenges of the future if we give up the illusion that the harbor is safe in and of itself in the first place, right? Like part of what I hope that you leave the conversation with is just a touch more courage, a touch more resolve to consider the call that exists beyond your safe harbor. Even though heeding that call will often come at the expense of comfort, even though it requires you to reframe this relationship that you have with the familiar, you will inevitably have to burn the altar of what you know for the invitation of something new. And yep, that can be scary. But in this debate over taking the chances required to unlock the fulfillment that you desire, as you weigh these pros and cons of staying where you are because you believe that you know what this version of your life holds, what it unfolds, that control is an illusion. I am speaking from personal experience. This control does not really exist. Did anyone experience 2020 with me? This control did not really exist, right? So like believing that you know how this life unfolds is actually taking a passive posture in reaction. You are choosing to react to the way that life comes at you instead of a proactive approach to engineering the kind of life that you'd hope for in fulfillment, right? So the closest thing that we can actually get to in being in control is when we end up being the person who's moving forward to actively create our destiny rather than waiting for it to be handed to us, right? Manufacturing our next moves instead of having to react to a move that is made to us. It is not a question of whether a move will be made to you or not. You are not going to win the no moves coming your way lottery. It don't exist. So you get to choose. Do you want to actively take a posture of engineering an outcome that you'd hope for or react to one that you don't expect or want?
This can be your day for personal growth. This can be that day you committed to and you remember and you go, that was the day I got myself a community. I got better coaches. I committed to making my life the absolute best that I could. This is that day. Make today your growth day. Click the button on this page and sign up right now.